Hello and welcome to episode 113 of the Wisdom from the Akasha podcast. My name is Suzie, I'm your host, and I'm an Akashic Records teacher and practitioner. Today, I want to talk about something that I hope is going to help you expand your perspective in respect of different ways that you can use your Akashic Records by sharing with you something that I have been going through. Usually I don't include personal anecdotes in my podcast episodes, so do let me know if these types of episodes are helpful. When I was going through this, my guides said, it would be really good for you to maybe offer this as a podcast so that when people who are listening who have their own Akashic Records practice could maybe try this out when they have fear or resistance coming up. What I'm going to do today is provide you some context as to why I'm doing this episode, and then also some practical steps that you can take in your own Akashic Records practice if this is something that comes up for you. If you don't have an Akashic Records practice yet, no matter when you're listening to this, go over to my website, get signed up for the online free Akashic Records workshop so you can come and meet me, learn more about how an Akashic Records practice can be really helpful on your spiritual journey. And I'll also put a link in the show notes to the level 1 training. Level 1 training is all about you learning how to work in your own Akashic Records. So going in, getting guidance, paying attention to when the ego is coming in and providing some resistance, as it always does, but also to do some energy work and some energy clearing in there. So it is quite an intensive course. It's 6 weeks, but if you haven't yet got an Akashic Records practice and you're on your spiritual journey, I'd highly recommend checking that out, and I'll pop a link into the show notes for both of those. First up, the context. I have been at the point in my business where really I should have outsourced a lot of the back end, a lot of the office admin, probably around 3 years ago now. So we're in 2026 now. So I really probably should have been doing this back in 2022, 23. And I know this. And there are certain aspects of my business that I have outsourced, and I outsource to contractors, but I've been really resistant to outsourcing. And anytime there's resistance or fear coming up, it's always the ego. And when you're moving into your next period of expansion, when you get this resistance or you get this fear coming up, I want you first of all to know that this is completely normal. And what I want to offer today is some understanding as to how you can use your Akashic Records to work through this. I can give you a multitude of different reasons as to why I logically am resistant to outsourcing certain aspects of my business. Those of you who have your own business, you know you're everything. You're wearing every hat. And that gives you a little bit of a sense of security and a little bit of control because you're in it. But you don't need to be in everything. And actually, a lot of the stuff that I need to outsource is stuff that I know full well that I'm not the best at. And actually, there are people who are better qualified than me for that. But it doesn't mean the resistance won't come up. I could come up with lots of different logical reasons over that 3-year period where I've been putting off doing this outsourcing as to the reasons why I didn't want to outsource. And they included a whole host of different things based on experiences that I have had in my past careers, in different jobs that I've been in respect of feeling unsupported, people maybe not doing what I had asked them to do in my previous career, etc., etc. I had all these logical reasons, and the ego is quite happy to feed me all of these logical reasons. So I know that there is multiple reasons why this resistance is coming up. I also know that this is totally normal when your business is moving into expansion. And of course, my desire is to help as many people as I possibly can work with their own Akashic Records, whether that's working one-on-one with me or teaching them. I've got some new classes that I want to bring through as well. And I'm not able to do that if I'm also trying to control every other aspect of my business. So I knew there's this internal battle going on between the ego, which wants to keep everything as it is, and my soul, which is, no, we need to expand further. And I want to remind any of you who have a business, not only is this completely normal, but running your own business is like spiritual development on crack, I heard someone say. And it really is. It's going to bring up any wounds that you have, any areas that maybe you're holding on to limiting beliefs, and that is all completely normal. It doesn't mean you're doing business wrong. It's just how business is. A couple of the areas of resistance that were coming up for me were I was in my corporate career, I was promoted very quickly, and as part of being promoted, I was put in charge of a team. And looking back, I can now say I definitely was not ready to be put in charge of other people. I was great at doing my job part, but looking after people was not my forte, nor was it something I was trained in. I didn't have a very good experience resistance with that. And I understand why that was, and I'm okay with that. But it's created this energetic stagnation around working with other people or trusting other people to do what you have asked them to do. There was also this limiting belief that if you want something doing well, you have to do it yourself. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that heard that one growing up. That was something that I had playing in the background. And there's lots of other stuff that's coming on that I won't go into. I'm sure you get my point by now. I just want you to know that it's normal. This resistance comes up. And this is the information, these points of resistance or these points of fears that we can take into our Akashic Records practice to really dive into and to really understand more. I also want you to understand and just to remember that it is the nature of our souls to expand and evolve. I am, of course, very blessed to have a successful business that I've worked really hard on over the years. And I also know that business is going to change. It's going to evolve. It's going to grow and it's going to be different. And that in itself can be very scary, but it is the nature of our soul to expand and grow. I truly love my work. I love to teach. I love working with people one-on-one. But what I don't love is I don't love the back end stuff. I don't love the admin. And I completely know it's essential to my business, but it's just not my area of expertise. As I've said earlier, there are people out there who are far more qualified and far better at that type of stuff that I can outsource my business to. My service lights me up. My service is what I love to do every single day. The back office stuff gets done because it has to be done. Depending upon where you are in your own business journey, and I'm speaking specifically to business owners here, but you can use this in any area of your life. So depending upon where you're at is going to determine the type of resistance that comes up. For example, when you're first starting out in business, the first bit of resistance or the first fear that usually comes in is that fear of being seen or ideas around self-worth. These tend to be the two things that come up the most. And I've just completed the Clearing the Witch Wounding class, which again was a Deepening Your Own Akashic Records practice class. And that was designed to identify and to really dig into that fear of being seen, because that fear of being seen, yes, is common from a current lifetime perspective, but it usually does have roots in a past life or an ancestral line. And this is what we dug into in that class, the fear of being seen and this resistance to authenticity. And the results for this have been amazing. I've been able to see people who were absolutely terrified of posting on social media now posting and sharing their beautiful voices. Another common wound that comes up when you're first starting off in business that's very connected to self-worth is around money and pricing and money wounding. And this is something that I look at in the Akashic Abundance class. I will be running that one again this year, so I'll pop a link into the show notes so you can register for the waitlist for that one. That waitlist will get the dates notified to them when that class is ready for sign up, and also the early bird code for that one. But the point here is that it is totally normal on your business journey and on your spiritual journey to have times where resistance and fears come up. And it's also completely possible for all of you to work with your Akashic Records to help you through this. Not to help you avoid it or bypass it, but to help you move through it so that you can continue to expand and evolve. And this is very deep and profound work. And I'm going to share with you here now a little bit about how to do this so you can take it into your own practice if you're coming up against this for yourself. So now we understand what it is that we are looking to identify and work with, and we want to move past this. We've identified, okay, I've got fears, I've got resistance coming up. How do I actually do this? The very first thing is to name the fear or the resistance. You can't do anything if you're trying to pretend it doesn't exist. If you're trying to bypass, this isn't about self-judgment or being mean to each other or being mean to ourselves or I'm so broken. It's about becoming observant of ourselves. So self-reflecting and saying, what is the fear or the resistance coming up? It's completely normal. So I'm not going to judge myself. I'm just going to name it. You'll hear me talk about with fear, it's very much about putting your head in the mouth of the tiger. And this is one of those times where it's put your head in the mouth of the tiger, name what's coming up. Once you have identified the fear or the resistance, you want to make a list of those logical reasons why it exists. Let the ego, which is the provider of the fear and the resistance, let it have its say. Let it give you all of those logical reasons as to why that fear or that resistance exists. And this might take some time. It might take a few days. You might want to journal on it, but just make a list of all of those reasons, all of that justification that the ego is giving you as to why they exist. It might be events that happen to you. It might be limiting beliefs that you have. It might be personality tendencies that you have, like perfectionism. Just write it all down. This is providing us with the source material to then go into our Akashic Records and to do the Akashic Records work. Once you've gathered that information, and do take your time with it, do let the information come forward, do take it into your spiritual practice for a couple of days or even a week. Take it into the Akashic Records and really explore, okay, where does this actually come from? Because it might be that it comes from a past life. It might be that it comes from a vow that you made in a past life. It might be inherited through your ancestral line. This is the first level of unpicking all of this and healing it. It's that understanding of this more objective perspective as to why this is happening. This is that first level of healing in the Akashic Records, the understanding from that objective soul level perspective. By this point, once you've done that exploration work into understanding that bigger picture, you'll have quite a comprehensive picture as to what's going on. And then we can look at, now I want the Akashic Records to help me some more. The first exercise you want to do is something that I do in all of my Deepening Akashic Records classes, which is called expanding the container. And this means really getting into nervous system work, because your nervous system needs to be stable to help support the expansion. Any fear, any resistance is going to destabilize the nervous system. So this is an essential first exercise. You can't get onto the next bits if you haven't done the expanding the container work. You can ask your Akashic Records guides to help you expand the container or to help you stabilize the root chakra, or you can ask them what type of practices are really going to be supportive for you at this time, but do that part of the exercise first. Once you're feeling like you've got that container expanded, you're feeling a bit more stabilized, a bit more grounded, take the information that you have gained in the first part of this investigation, so what the ego has had to say and then what the Akashic Records have said about expanding that perspective, and take an issue per session into your Akashic Records. I always recommend doing one at a time rather than trying to bring them all in and do them all at once, because it helps you keep a clear flow of what your work is and what you're doing and which bits might be a little bit more resistant. So maybe you take one issue in, you ask for the Akashic Records assistance, they clear it, and that's it, that issue's dealt with. Maybe you take something else and it's going to take a little bit longer. So by doing it piece at a time, you're able to work through this methodically. An helpful exercise that you can do as you're bringing these parts in to really understand and ask the Akashic Records to help you heal or clear it is to ask the part of you that has been affected to step forward, that the part of you that is scared, and this might be inner child you, it might be past life you. Ask that part to step forward and then ask about the fears that they have. This is essentially you being witness and you offering that space to that part of you, and reassure that part of you that you hear them, you understand that, but you have everything in hand. And then ask that part of you, that version of you that has already healed this, so this is future timeline you, higher timeline you, to step forward and say, okay, this is the fear that I have, this is where it's coming from, how do we move through this? And this higher timeline version of you is very helpful. They're going to offer you some guidance, some advice, those day-to-day practical steps that you might need to do to help support the clearing work that is taking place by the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records are going to be healing and clearing during this process, but we want to be able to support it as well. We want to be able to take those conscious actions whilst this is taking through. And that version of you wants to help. The version that is no longer fearful or resistant wants to help you get to that point. And because that clearing is taking place, it's completely normal to feel different energetic shifts taking place in the light grid. So go slowly and give yourself time to adjust. Again, this is why I say take one issue in at a time. Ask that part to step forward that feels that. Ask the higher self that has healed that particular issue to step forward. Find out what you can do, and then you can move on to the next issue in a different session. Another thing that you can do in the Akashic Records that I do in the deepening classes is planting new expansive beliefs to override those previous limiting beliefs. So if you've identified any limiting beliefs in your list of why you can't move forward, why you have that fear and resistance coming up, then bring those in to your Akashic Records practice and then plant some new beliefs. So plant the opposite belief. So for example, I am not worthy of receiving X amount per month. If that's a limiting belief, then bring in a new belief. I am completely worthy of receiving X amount per month, and plant it in the Akashic Records. This is called planting affirmations, and it's part of the construction work that we do in the deepening classes. If you want support doing this work, you can work with me one-to-one. I'll pop a link into the mentorship in my show notes because I'm doing the intake calls for those for the next intake at this moment in time, or you can come along to one of the Deepening Your Akashic Records practices. And like I said, the next one that I have up is going to be Akashic Abundance. I really wanted to share this with you, first of all, to let you know that if you are a business owner, or if you're just someone on your spiritual journey, that it's completely normal to have fears and resistance come up. I also wanted to use this episode just to give you that framework as to understanding how you can go in, how you can use this information in your Akashic Records to understand it deeper and to start healing and clearing it through, and really to remind you of the versatility and deep work that you can do in your own Akashic Records. It's not just about past lives or off-earth lifetimes, which can in themselves be fascinating, but they're a tool that you can use over and over again while you're on your spiritual journey. You're always going to be able to go deeper with them, and also just to give you that gentle reminder that everything you have, everything that you need for this spiritual journey is within you. Everything you need to navigate this beautiful, crazy, chaotic, amazing human experience you have within you. Your soul made sure it came in with everything it needed. I hope that you found this episode helpful. I'd love to hear from you in the comments if you give this a try, if you do this work and how you find it, and I will see you next time for the next episode.